I knew it. I'm happy, but I knew it. Anyway, hey there guys, what's up? It's Autobot Mike 18 here, back with another episode review, TV episode review. Guys, I literally just published one of these, oh man, like 5 hours ago, right? At like 5:30. I reviewed last week's episode of The Walking Dead today because I had not seen it nor gotten a chance to review it. And let me just say this much. This episode, yes, was significantly better than last week's episode. I am so much glad I missed last week's episode and not this week's episode, if you know what I'm saying. So guys, in this video tonight, I'm going to be reviewing tonight's episode of The Walking Dead. This is The Walking Dead Season 6, Episode 7, Heads Up. And in case you guys don't normally follow my Walking Dead reviews or whatever, spoilers, alright? I am going to spoil the crap out of not only this episode, but if you have not seen this season in general, spoilers, okay? Because I'm going to ruin the entire season for you pretty much, except for like the first episode. But like anywhere from episode 3 onward, I'm ruining it, okay? So guys, yes, tonight's episode of The Walking Dead. I was looking forward to it. I was really hoping it was going to be bigger than the previous episode, because last week's episode just was not that good at all, and I really wanted more ultimately, and I think what I wanted and what everybody else wanted, I'm assuming, was answered, because tonight's episode definitely did deliver. It was a lot better than last week's, and it finally answered the question we have all been waiting to get answers from, the big question of, did Glenn get bit? Okay, in that all the way back in episode 3, was Glenn the one being eaten alive, or was it Nicholas, and did Glenn use Nicholas as cover and get out of that situation in some way? So, because I'm talking about Glenn, and because Glenn's character is a focus of tonight's episode, I might as well start off with his storyline, because tonight's episode really picks up about there's like 3 different things going on. We mainly focus on Glenn's character, and then we have a whole side storyline with Morgan, and then I would say maybe another side storyline with Rick, okay? And other Alexandrians thrown in there. So let's start off with the obvious, Glenn. Yes, everyone, the question has finally been answered. Glenn is still alive. He survived. Okay, he did survive, and it was the theory, I think the number one theory that everybody guessed it was. It was the theory that Nicholas fell on top of Glenn. The walkers ate Nicholas. They were eating Nicholas. And Glenn scurried under the dumpster, knifed a couple walkers, and murdered, hid under there for a couple days, or at least 2 days, maybe a couple days more. That is true. That is what happened, and they even showed that in tonight's episode. That is right where the episode picks up. We have a black screen, and we have Nicholas's audio saying thank you. We hear the gunshot. We see the 2 of them falling in, basically like a backtrack of the end of episode 3. And we cut to literally one different shot, alright? Everything else in the beginning is pretty much the same. That shot of Glenn's head hitting the ground, then falling in. The shot of Glenn first supposedly being eaten. Then we cut to a different shot where we see Glenn's body. We see Nicholas is on top of Glenn, and the camera like pans and shows like Nicholas's dead face. The zombies eating his guts. And yeah, so they're eating Nicholas, and Glenn scurries under the trash can using Nicholas as a diversion before they get to him. Some walkers start sticking their arms under the trash can to try to get him. He starts knifing them. Hides under the dumpster. I keep saying trash can. Hides under the dumpster for maybe about a night, maybe 2 nights the most. No food, no water, no nothing like that. Okay, and then right before we cut to the opening credits, most of the walkers have just given up interest, as you would expect them to do, which I completely buy into. They leave the area. Glenn gets out from under the dumpster, and Enid, who's been that girl we've been following since the end of last season and in this season as well. She was the focus of the episode JSS. She was the one who came up with that saying, just survive somehow. And you know Enid. She is on top of one of the roofs. She throws Glenn a bottle of water, and obviously had taken note that Glenn had been stuck under there for quite some time. And Glenn tries to follow her and find her to get her to go back to Alexandria. He's asking her questions like, I heard gunshots. We heard the echoing noise coming from Alexandria, which we all know was the horn from one of the wolves, the wolves' truck. all of that. Glenn is trying to get these answers, and he asks if Maggie's okay, all right? And she doesn't answer him, so he runs off trying to find her. We cut the credits. Okay, guys, before I go any further into Glenn's storyline tonight's episode, number one, am I happy Glenn's alive? Of course I am, all right? I loved Glenn. Everybody loved Glenn. It's great to have Glenn back, all right? It really is. Should Glenn be alive? No. No, guys, I'm sorry. I 100% do not buy it, okay? I don't buy it. I mean, the show 90% of the time, or maybe 80% of the time, does a good job with when a character gets into peril, they're not going to make it out of it. They die, okay? And the fact that Glenn made it out of that situation alive without even getting scratched or bit at least once, I don't buy. Okay, I don't buy it. First off, in tonight's early reenactment of Nicholas being eaten on top of Glenn, there were a shit ton more walkers in episode 3 than there were tonight, because in that shot that pans from Glenn to Nicholas's dead body, and we see him being eaten, it looks like there's almost no walkers around there. So that's error number one I have. Error number two, and I made note of this I think in a later video, when Glenn and Nicholas fell off of the dumpster, they fell away from the dumpster, their heads facing towards the zombies. Glenn has somehow turned his body around and goes head first under the dumpster, which does not make any sense, because logically he didn't fall that way. And do I buy that not one walker scratched him at least when he was hiding on the dumpster? No, I don't buy that at all. I love Glenn, don't get me wrong, but they went that far to establish or make us all believe that Glenn was murdered, or that Glenn was eaten alive. Alright, and that's fine. But if you're going to go that far, don't make your character come out of that alive, because logically, no one would have made it out of that. And I get that Glenn has made it out of a ton of hairy situations before. I still think he's dead. He should have died at the end of Season 5, in the Season 5 finale, when all those zombies, when like 3 different zombies came on top of him, when Nicholas shot him in the woods. I think he should have died then. And I actually did think that was going to be his demise then, but they fooled us, and I was like, alright, that's fine. I can maybe see Glenn getting out of this. I could not see Glenn getting out of this at all, okay? I don't care what anyone says. Guys, fight me in the comments if you want. Do you think that Glenn should have died? I honestly do. And if they're going to go the comics route and they want Glenn to die the same way he died in the comics, I'm fine with that, but they should not have put Glenn in as hairy of a situation as they put him in this season. I'm sorry. I like what they were going for. I like how they wanted to just keep us in shock and not reveal whether or not Glenn actually made it out for a couple weeks, which they did. But I think that they should have either had less zombies in that scene, or they should have made it a lot more believable, because I'm not buying that Glenn made it out of that at all. Okay, I really don't. He was also covered in way more blood and guts than he is in this episode. But that's just me bitching and complaining about that. Alright, I'm going to just move on and forget about it, but I'm not going to forget about it in another sense, because The Walking Dead does this a lot, and they should not, because it's not realistic at all. But anyway, getting more into Glenn's storyline, he tracks Enid down. Apparently she has her own, like, habitat, or not habitat, that was weird. Her own, like, little, like, she took some part of a restaurant or something, and she's got her own, like, little belongings, her own, like, little papers that say JSS or whatever. And she's making her own little, like, home, or her own little community for herself. She does not want to go back to Alexandria. I think, honestly, there's a problem. And I like what they've done with her character, honestly, this season. I like the backstory they've given us. She lost her parents very early on, and now her motto is just survive somehow, okay? And she's going to survive in any way possible. And it's like she's trying, it's like she has trouble connecting with people. And I think it might, obviously, has something to do with the death of her parents being eaten. Glenn brings up her parents, and she just quickly rebuffs him at some point in this episode as they're heading back to Alexandria. Glenn eventually considers her to head back to Alexandria with him to help him lead him back. I think part of him didn't all that know the way back to Alexandria. Enid has been back and forth. You know, she'd leave the wall, she'd leave Alexandria, go out and explore, and then come back. As we all know, in Season 5, she did that a lot. she did that, I think, early on season 6 as well. And she left at the end of episode 3, and it looked like perfect timing because she really saved Glenn's ass with the water, okay? She was the one who throws the water to Glenn when she's up on the roof. She coined the phrase of tonight's episode, the title of the episode, heads up, okay? Throws Glenn in the water. But Glenn at this point, or at least the first half of Glenn's storyline, his mission is just to get back to Alexandria, to get to Maggie, of course. But later on, it becomes much more than that, and he explains that to her when they get to Alexandria finally. They have a shit ton of balloons that they found, but they can't get into Alexandria because there is a ton of walkers. All the second half of that giant herd that the group was trying to move away from Alexandria, they all went towards Alexandria after the horn and everything, and then obviously Rick led half of them back as well after the thing with the RV, so that didn't help either. So all the walkers are now surrounding Alexandria. Glenn and what's her face, Enid, make it back, and they obviously have to devise some way to get back into Alexandria, and they obviously decide to use the balloons. At the very end of the episode, we see like 6 or 7 green balloons being released into the air, and it catches the attention of the Alexandrians. But I'll get more on that towards the end of the episode. But that was essentially all of Glenn's storyline, and I really like where they took it. Apart from the bullshit that Glenn is still alive, I like where they went with it, honestly. I like how they had him meet Enid, okay? Two very opposite people. Glenn is a guy who wants to survive and will do anything to survive. Enid also wants the same exact thing, but she kind of wants to go about it in different means. She kind of has lost, I think, more faith in the world, I guess, because she keeps isolating herself from everybody else, especially other human interaction, primarily. And I think that's her deal, honestly, and I'm liking her character. I liked that. I liked sort of not the bond that her and Glenn shared, but the sort of how they have to rely on each other to get back to Alexandria, or how Glenn specifically needs to rely on her to get back to Alexandria. And I really liked where they went with that. Again, just the whole Glenn being alive still is bullshit. Am I happy? Yeah, of course. I love Glenn, but bullshit. Anyway, let's get into the other storyline. Let's focus on Rick and, let's focus on Morgan's storyline right now. Because, in my opinion, the best scene in tonight's episode is one tense-ass scene between Morgan, Rick, Carol, and Michonne. Alright, so part of this episode starts off, it's intercutting between Glenn trying to get back and Rick and the group in Alexandria. Okay, and we see Morgan, like, practicing with his bow staff, and Rick walks by and is like, we gotta talk, man, at some point this afternoon. We gotta have, like, a sit-down, okay? And Morgan's like, alright, I'll do it. And what I find so interesting about their sit-down is, I guess, really where Morgan's head is right now, and where Carol, Rick, and Michonne's heads are right now. Because Morgan is essentially an outcast of Alexandria when you look at it. And it's not like he's not welcome or anything. Morgan mentally is in a lot more of a different place than Rick, Carol, or Michonne are. Which makes the what do you call it? The confrontation scene between them in one of the houses at Alexandria, all that more intriguing for me to watch, because they bring up to Morgan that Carol, when the wolves attacked, Carol saw Morgan not wanting to kill them. Okay, she saw that weakness in him. And they immediately ask him, did you let any of them go? And he tells them the truth. He did let a few of them go. And those few that he did let go were the ones that ended up attacking Rick in the RV. And Rick is they're all basically just trying to stress to Morgan how those people were killers. He needed to kill them when he had the chance. But Morgan, again, taking the path that he has gone down, he brings up how he almost killed Rick in Clear. Okay, in Season 3, Episode 13, Clear. Or Episode 12, Clear, when Rick first showed up. He fired at them, and they knocked him out. They shot him and knocked him out. But then Morgan stabbed Rick, and he would have gone all the way and tried to kill Rick had it wasn't someone he didn't know. So that's really, they see, especially Rick sees the ultimate transition that Morgan has gone through since he last saw him in Clear. Okay, Morgan has become a totally different person, and we know exactly why Morgan is the way he is because of this flashback episode we had in season 4 and season 6, and Morgan, all of Morgan's involvement with Eastman. In my opinion, still one of the best episodes this season, but that perfectly shows us where Morgan is as a character right now. He admits to Rick that he believes there has to be like a peaceful means to going about this world, okay? He tells Rick right in this confrontation scene, I still believe people can change, okay? There's still some good in people. You just need to get the good out of them, okay? You need to wait for them to go through that transition, as Morgan has. Alright, Morgan then brings up that you guys specifically, he says to Rick and Carol, you've all gone through that as well. There's one difference though. They are all good people, okay? But they will kill if they need to. They will kill a threat. Morgan will not kill a threat. And as much as I love the character of Morgan, and I love where his head is right now, and how interesting it is to have a group of people who feel differently than Morgan does, okay? They will kill any threats. To have one man who will not do that, I think is really incredible, and I love where they're going with that this season. Okay, I love how they brought Morgan back. I think they brought him back at literally the most perfect time. That is one of the best things I am going to be complimenting this season about, because it's perfect. Honest, it's brilliant writing in my opinion to have that sort of juxtaposition between one good man who is still kind of trying to hold on to the old world in a sense by wanting to give people a second chance, wanting to sort of spare people, and he wanted to see. He has that one wolf capture. He wants to see sort of the change that he personally went through. Okay, and I just love that. I absolutely love that. And then Rick asks him, do you think you could survive if you, without killing people, all right? Because Morgan is starting to realize, oh shit, maybe this isn't the right way, okay? But he's still attached to that persona that he has now, not killing people, using a more peaceful method. And he answers Rick by telling him, I don't know. So I love where they are going with his character this season. I can't wait to see everything unfold. That is honestly the most intriguing thing going on in this entire show right now. And if it comes down to the fact that Morgan gets someone killed with that one wolf he has captured, Rick just might have to kill him. Carol might just have to kill him. Alright, and I really can't wait to see that conflict boil to a head. Alright, I love it. I love that scene. That's one of the best scenes, in my opinion, of the last couple episodes, in all honesty. I love it. I absolutely love it. I love where they're going. I read a fan theory that was going on saying that they're building up this pretty interesting difference in viewpoint between Morgan and Carol and Rick and all of them. And somebody concluded that it might end with Morgan's demise by the end of this season. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I could see it going in that direction. I'm really excited to see where it's going to go. But anyway, I just had to bring that up. I just love that. But getting into the rest of Morgan's storyline, he goes to visit that Dr. Denise because he wants to find out how to treat a possible wound that may or may not be affected. He doesn't know. And he's, of course, talking about the wolf that he has captured. That one wolf with the long black hair. He doesn't know really what to do with him, and obviously he did not tell Rick or Carol or Michonne or any of them, because they would kill the wolf on spot. And the wolf himself has told Morgan to his face, I am going to have to kill you if I get out of this. Alright? And Morgan has sort of just brushed it off, and he's not going to kill him. He still wants to go down that peaceful route, and I love where they're going with this. I really do, because I know it's going to end badly, and it might come to a head in the mid-season finale next weekend. I can't wait to see it, honestly. What's going to go down with Morgan and the wolf. But, so Morgan leads this doctor to the cell, or the place that he's holding up the wolf, and Carol, who's holding Judith, sees all this unfold. So she drops Judith off at Jesse's place, and goes to see what's going on with Morgan. She goes back to the same house Morgan went into. She opens the door. Morgan answers, and she's like, tell me right now who you have in this place, okay? And it cuts away from that. So obviously they're going to continue that in next week's episode. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the first scene. Carol seeing the wolf captured, okay, and held up in chains or whatever. But I really can't wait to see where that's going to go. I'm really getting excited about that storyline, to be completely honest. Now the rest of tonight's episode, that was Morgan's storyline. The rest of it really focused on Rick. We have a scene where Rick is trying to teach Ron how to use a gun. with Carl standing by the side. And every single time, if you watch the scene closely, that Carl says something, Ron just shoots him like a weird kind of look on his face. And I don't know, with the way they ended Ron's storyline tonight, Rick lets him keep the gun on him. I don't think gives him any bullets. And Ron sneaks into the armory to steal a couple bullets. And one of the very last scenes of the episode, we see Carl walking like toward the walls or something. Ron following him behind, and he has the gun out like behind his back. So I don't know what's going to go on there. I still think that Ron has some beef with Carl, even though Carl has really done nothing wrong to Ron. It's really, I think, Ron is really just still upset that he lost his father to Rick. Rick killed Pete. And I think that's honestly what's really messing his head up. That's what's messed his head up this entire season. And I think he's going to act out as a result of it. I don't know if he's going to act out on Carl. It seems that way. Or if he's just going to go after Rick. But I think he honestly wants to get into Rick's head. Maybe he's going to do something to Carl. I don't know if he's going to shoot him. I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm really excited and intrigued to see where that storyline is going to go. Okay, this episode did a very good job of setting up a couple storylines that are going to boil over into the mid-season finale that I can't wait to see explained and, discussed upon. So moving on. Let me try to think through the rest of the episode. We have Maggie at the watchtower or at one of the walls looking over, trying to, obviously on the lookout for Glenn throughout the entire episode. She's doing that. We have Deanna, who finishes up the expansion plans for Alexandria and gives them to Michonne to take a look at, because they want to expand Alexandria, but their first big problem that they have to deal with is the buildup of walkers outside the walls. Okay, now the walkers currently cannot get in. Okay, as of the start of tonight's episode. But the big problem is they got to get them away before they can go outside the walls even. And them surrounding all the walls is what's keeping Glenn and Enid from coming back into Alexandria. And it's stopping people from going back out. So what Rick decides to do in tonight's episode is start propping up the walls with wood. He's working with another guy in the community. We've seen him. He's like a supporting character. He's in a couple scenes here or there. Pretty tall guy. I don't know his name or anything. And I couldn't help but be reminded of the prison when Rick started propping up the walls with wood. I just see the walls coming down just like the fate of the prison, man. When the walls came down, they could not hold, because walls are meant to go down, all right? And with the way Alexandria has just been engulfed with walkers, and the way it got shot up by the wolves, and the wolves broke into it, something bad is going to happen to the walls, obviously, and something does come to a head in the end of tonight's episode, and I'm going to get into that. There's one other big scene, though, that I didn't care for tonight's episode. I was really into it, guys. I was into the episode for the majority. I was hooked by it. The one scene that literally came out of nowhere and took me right out of the episode was the scene where Deanna's son Spencer throws like a tightrope grappling hook thing from one wall of Alexandria to like another like building nearby. There's a shit ton of walkers below, and starts shimmying across the rope to get to the other side. Rick and they all catch him, and they're yelling for him to come back. Of course, the grappling hook breaks, and they have to do some damage control. So Tara like leans over one of the walls and is firing at the walkers below to sort of save Spencer's life. This is Deanna's son. And then they have to, the rope breaks in half, and he like swings and slams into the wall. He left. So he's like in the middle. It's just like Home Alone. When Macaulay Culkin cut the rope, and then they were like in the middle or whatever. I think it was the first. Yeah, I think it was the first Home Alone. Or he set it on fire. He did something to it. And no, he chopped it in half, and they swung to the side where they came from. I think. I don't know. And yeah, so that's what happens. It's the same scenario. He's on the rope. It splits in half. He swings back to where he started shimmying from. So he hits the wall, and he starts picking off a couple walkers. Tara's firing at walkers, and Rick and the other guy, Morgan, show up to sort of hoist him back up to the top of the wall to get him out of there, and they just narrowly make it. All right, and Rick is completely pissed. He yells at Tara for giving or for almost sacrificing herself just to save him. And then she flips him the finger, and I was like, woo, drama. Then we have Rick ask him, what the hell are you doing, man? Like, what is going on here? What are you trying to accomplish? And he's like, I just wanted to get to the other side, maybe get a car, draw some of the walkers away from the walls, because that is their dilemma for some in this episode, how to get some of these walkers away from the walls. So that's what his plan were. That scene was so freaking dumb, though, guys. It bothered me how just completely out of nowhere it was, how just out of place it was. It was so, I don't know. Like, would any person be dumb enough to honestly try that? I don't know. This is the only thing I didn't like. And then the very end of the episode, Michonne is looking over those building plans, or those expansion plans for Alexandria. Deanna confronts Rick and thanks him for saving Spencer. And, you know, their next move is to essentially just keep the walls up. And I think they say at one point, we don't know how long they're going to last. And, like, right around after they say that, or right towards the end of that whole conversation, that one watchtower thing that was, like, on its last legs, we've seen it in a couple of shots in the last few episodes, starts to break, it snaps, it falls right over the wall, brings down 2 walls of the giant wall as a whole, and then it just cuts right to black, like in mid-fall of that building falling over the walls. And boom, that is it. We are set up for a mid-season finale. 2 of the walls are coming down. Walkers are getting in, okay? People are going to die. I can't wait for the mid-season finale. This was an interesting setup. There were a few slow moments in tonight's episode. I liked us seeing what happened with Glenn's character, the continuation, even though it's complete bullshit. There's some great moments, especially every scene with Morgan that was in it. I was completely riveted by, and I could not take my eyes off the screen. So great moments and all that. Good episode overall. I can't wait to see what's going to happen next week, and that's ultimately why I think I'm hyped up right now, because I'm intrigued for next week. But I'm going to give tonight's episode of The Walking Dead heads up. I'm going to give it 8.75 out of 10, or a B+. I almost gave it an A- or a 9, but I stopped myself because I still call bullshit on Glenn's survival. But I'll live with that. The only other thing that took me out of it was the whole dumbass move by Spencer, okay? Only thing that pissed me off. Other than that, guys, what did you guys think of tonight's episode of The Walking Dead? Let me know down below in the comments. What do you think is going to happen next week, guys? You excited for the mid-season finale? Let me know your predictions down below in the comments, and I'll let you know mine as well if you want to hear more of mine for next week, okay? So thank you guys, as always, for watching. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.